with you. I would actually like to start by just checking in with a couple of you where you're at on this journey and how we can support you right now. So what is challenging right now in your life? And are you a beginner? Have you done some of the biomedical? Are you completely exhausted with either your children or your wife's approach to this? Just let us know. I highly recommend that this call is only for men and that no women ever checks it. So this is between you and me. Because there are things that we need to be able to share about women. I'm also going to reveal things about women that I don't talk to other women about, to make it easier for you to understand what's going on when it's not easy and when we act completely irrational and when we become extremely challenging as mothers. So let me start by checking in with you, Christopher. I'm just going to ask you to unmute yourself if you feel like sharing a little bit about yourself.
Hold on, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. Let me step outside real quick. I'm actually in Arkansas on a family trip right now. So let me.
Oh, challenging. Are you okay to share? Because feel free if you feel like just listening in, and if it's too stressful for you, that's totally fine as well.
I can share. What was the question?
So where are you at with this autism journey, and how may we support you in whatever's challenging to you right now?
We're pretty deep in. We've been doing this. Me and my wife have been doing this for about a year and a half now. We're doing anything and everything medical wise. We've kind of done everything outside of the typical doctor's office. It's all holistic approaches now.
Perfect.
We've completely changed the way he eats. 100%. Me and my wife are now getting on board and start eating just like our son. For me, it's challenging for me. I'm trying to get back home. Me and my wife currently live separately because of my job.
Right.
And the services where we live are not provided. So I had her move back to San Diego to take care of our son, and I'm trying to get back home. So I only see them twice out of the week. That's the biggest challenge for me.
Okay, and what works for you in your approach now, Christopher? And what still, where do you still have challenges with your child, if any?
It's just trying to figure out what he's feeling. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he goes through his episodes and we know something's wrong, but it's the knowing. We don't know what it is, though. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to, be there for him, mm-hmm, and also be his parent as well.
And your wife, is she in any of the courses?
Yes, she's fully in the courses. Yes, her name's Dahlia.
Great. Perfect. Thank you so much for letting me know. Well, thank you so much. I'll do my best to provide the tools that I feel that I can give to you as a woman to a man on this journey. And thank you so much for sharing. I want to also ask you, Patrick, if I can ask you to unmute and share where you are at, if there's any challenges that still is puzzling to you that we can help you with, let us know.
Yeah, I'm living in Norway, in southern Norway, Stavanger, and I have a 4.5-year-old girl, and she was diagnosed as serious infantile autism when she was 1.5, and we've been following the regime to the point, and it's working. She's getting better and better and better.
Perfect.
And she's 4.5. She speaks 2 languages, Norwegian and English, and she's functioning better and better for every day, thanks to the protocols that you are promoting, along with consulting Dr. B in London.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
So
who's your family? Who's your partner?
Ingvild is the mother.
Perfect.
And there's the little girl, Faye.
Oh, I love her. She's so beautiful. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, I'm so moved.
Yeah.
But you said it's still challenging. It's still hard sometimes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we don't live together, myself and Ingo, her mother, and it seems to work best that way. But
Yeah.
of course, that causes a whole range of challenges in itself. And
Yes.
whether it's because of the autism and the challenges of autism, that's hard to say. But it's going well.
And it could change, and it does come with a set of challenges to the relationship, whether we are together or divorced. It requires a lot of cooperation, and that's what I'm hoping that we can try and support each other in today. How's that working better, and what is it that stands between us and achieving that goal? So so thank you so much for your courageous share, and thank you for being here with us. I'll also connect all of you together if you want to hook up, and if you want to support each other afterwards. We'll make sure that that can happen as well.
All right, thank you to you too.
Thank you. So I just want to ask one more of you. So let's ask Miguel, if you can, because if you are available to talk, just share a little bit about yourself, Miguel.
Hi, my name is Miguel Vital. I'm from Venezuela, actually. I live in Spain from about 4 years, something like that. My son has 4 years and 3 months, and 2 months, I guess. Yes, 2 months. He's a very, very funny, sharp little guy. This is him. I don't know if you can see him.
A little bit to the, can you put it a little bit to the left? Oh, beautiful. Thank you. What's his name?
Lorenzo.
Okay.
Yeah. The mother is Vanessa Mata. She's a very, very fond follower of you. So she's always talking about you. She told me about this meeting and the way you try to introduce the partners, the male partners to all the process, and it's very interesting for me, actually. What's the case with Lorenzo? Well, he has been diagnosed with autism since a year ago, a little bit more. He had to test all of that. Since then, we have been proven with all the sessions, with the phoniatrics and all the changes in the food, no gluten, grounding a lot. Good. Trying to do a lot of grounding, and we see a lot of improvement in him. He's a very, very, very sharp, as I said, boy. It's very interesting to share and to deal with other kids and other humans, and I mean grown-ups. It doesn't matter. What's his limitation? He doesn't speak at all. Okay, he doesn't have a verbal language, but he does understands everything you said. Almost everything. We have using the pictograms until now, and that's the way we found out of it. We found that he's very clever until now. He's very independent and very self-resolving. Okay, he tries to resolve his problems by himself before asking for help. That's something I like a lot, because it seems a little bit like me in that way. And what can I say? I'm learning. Right now I'm learning a lot, because I work too much, 2 jobs actually, and I don't have so much time right now. I haven't. I was promoted one of them, so I now have some flexible hours right now. My first job, my main job. So I try to deal with it and try to share a lot of him right now, and have discovered all I have said right now. And it's a beautiful journey, actually.
Wonderful. Well, you're very strong. Thank you so much for being so positive. And I know it's hard work, and I know that you're working a lot in every area of life in order to make this happen. So I just want to honor you for that. Thank you for doing that work. And let's see if we can make it a little bit less strenuous for you. I'm going to do my best to try and share also about speech and how to improve speech and the different ages, what we do in different ages in order to help our children. So with that, thank you for sharing, and I hope that you'll be able to support each other in the future. I do want to mention that I am looking for men to become coaches to support other men, because, and this is what I want to start by saying, is that it's not natural for men to be taking instructions for women. And I just have to admit it just right up front, I'm not a feminist. I'm very, very interested in how we can keep the natural alpha male intact in the relationship, and how we can support men in taking leadership and stepping down, because it's really challenging for men when we become too controlling and too dominating. And that's what often happens in this journey, is that mom takes control. And I'll talk about why and how you can safely provide a space for her to step down, so that you can take the natural role of the leadership of the leader in this journey without having to work harder, because it also minimizes conflicts. So if any of you feel like you might get to a point where there's space and time for that, just let me know if you might be able to join that. It will be in the winter time, so closer to November, December, that we will start that education. And I want to train up a couple or 3 or 4 men in order to be able to support other men, because that is something that you need each other for. You need each other's support. And I want to pass on this knowledge that's taken me about 15 years as a journalist to collect and fail at and get better at and research and go down the wrong avenues and get back on track again. It just takes so much time to get to the bottom of this. So we don't want to start from scratch with that. But with that said, many of you have children the same age as my child was in the beginning of the journey. We actually started late, where he had his diagnosis around 4 years old, and we began the journey when he was between 4 and 5, and he was fully free from symptoms when he was 8. And I want to tell you that that is absolutely possible. It is happening all the time. The CDC is even acknowledging that autism is treatable. We have doctors, neurologists, pediatricians, psychiatrists, MDs all over the world providing these healing tools for children, but it's just not hitting mainstream. And it's actually less accepted and less known and less talked about now than it was 15 years ago, because of this whole fear of non-inclusion and this infatuation with neurodiversity and this obsession with acceptance and pride and all these things, where we get attached to the label. And when we get attached to the label and the diversity, and when autism becomes an identity, which is, it really truly does for a lot of moms, especially because then you belong to a community, you get someone to tell you what to do and what to expect and what not to expect, and you can delegate the responsibility to someone else, and you feel a sense of belonging and a sense of purpose. You really feel like that lioness within you becomes activated in that community. But my claim is that that community is dangerous if the goal is recovery. Just like if we said, well, let's create a cancer acceptance community, which is something that we almost have in the mainstream, or a diabetes acceptance community. It is as logical as doing that to have an autism acceptance community, because autism is a multifaceted cellular, neurological, existential, biological breakdown of the body, of the brain, of the bioclocks, and of the existence of the child within the nuclear family. And so dealing with the symptom by itself, instead of looking at the system, is ridiculous. It's like saying, let's accept diabetes and let's not look at environment. Let's just ignore the diet. Let's ignore the toxins. Let's ignore the xenoestrogens and all those things, and just accept diabetes and buy a t-shirt and stop being so uninclusive of the people that have diabetes. So that is a danger, and it's something to be aware of. One of the things that happens is that when we get attached to the diagnosis and the label and the experts that are attached to that diagnosis, whether it is mainstream experts or the biomedical practitioners and the therapists in the holistic field, we risk running their programming. We risk getting attached to their outcome and their protocols and their limited beliefs around autism. And they all have missing links, and we're going to get to that. But the experts and the moms that are doing this work, this happens all the time. I witness this, and I've witnessed it since about 2005, when I first sat in the room with 200 or 300 other parents with recovered children in the US, when I started going to these medical conferences. But they are not heard because many of these children that are my son's generation are now grown-ups. They have been told that autism is for life. They have been attached to that label and the community and the pride and the fierce defense of it. So they are now trolling parents who are recovering children, and they're also trolling the experts that are actually working in this field. So we got a complex situation going on here. It's not that we don't have challenges enough to deal with, but we also have to deal with the fact that both mainstream, the diagnostic process, the offerings from the mainstream established system and the alternative system has huge gaps and missing links, all of them, which is where you come into the picture as male leaders, as protectors of the family, as the ones who recognize who are friends, who are foes, and how do I take leadership in this? This is the most important battlefield of my life. So where do we begin, and how did we get here? I'm really curious about this because there's an epidemic of autism that I thought was serious when my son was diagnosed, but actually he was just at the cusp in the beginning of the epidemic that then since has exploded completely. So around 2006, we saw an extreme explosion in cases. So what has happened between 2006 and now, and why is it that the statistics show that if nothing happens from now and until 2035, 1 in 5 children will have autism. 1 in 5 children will be on the spectrum. One thing that happened is social media, the iPhones, the screens, but many other things happened as well. And I am no subscriber to the one cause, one solution aspect. I don't think that autism has one cause. I think that it has many different causes. And so it's a total load of increased unnatural ways of living our lives as families and of raising our kids. Anything from an indoor lifestyle, shoes, being more and more indoors and less outside, even since electricity was invented and refrigerators and the food supply, that was just endless availability of processed foods, less movement outside, less sunlight, less working for the food. So we are no longer hunting, we're no longer gathering, we're no longer farming, and we are awake way past sunset, which is where we not that long ago went to bed before the electricity and the LED lights lit up our whole existence. So that it's an endless summer, it's always hot, We always have endless availability of food, more and more passive lifestyle indoors, total confusion about light supplies. So we have artificial light indoors instead of following the sun and the movement in the sky, overconsumption, and artificial food, products, medicine, lifestyle, and lights. So the whole circadian rhythm is part of it as well. So this leads to a neuroscientific breakdown as well because of the passivity. So we are designed to crawl and creep and balance and use eye tracking outside to develop the part of the brain that's responsible for learning, social skills, emotional control, listening skills, visual processing, all the things that our children are actually struggling with. Turning concepts that we take in with the eyes and the ears into words that we can then express. Storing the information in a logical order so that we can get into a social interaction via the words. This is a listening skill, but it's also a visual skill. And it's a balance skill that all of our children have issues with this. And one of the reasons is indoor lifestyle, shoes, not crawling long enough, being in front of screens, or being in baby joggers or baby walkers, or being driven around in these carriages all the time. So there's so many things. There's a toxic load, and there's that as well. But something else has happened. And this is where men and your leadership becomes so incredibly important. At the same time of this epidemic in autism and Asperger's and ADHD, we have had an explosion in fertility issues, chronic disease, cancer, mental illness, but also less and less testosterone in men, more and more estrogen in men, more and more aromatase, which is where the body transforms testosterone into estrogen. So it actually converts testosterone into estrogen, so that men have less and less estrogen, which is why also they can't make babies. And it's also influencing this autism epidemic. So what creates testosterone is something that we need to understand in order to understand this and how to change this trajectory. It creates testosterone for men to go out and hunt, to go out and gather food, to bring back food around the fireplace, feed the family and tell the family about how you went out and hunted this deer, and then this happened, and then you were in this dangerous situation, and everyone's fed, and you're sitting around the fireplace, and the sun affects melatonin levels so that you get sleepy. And this sense of accomplishment of providing for the family and going out and hunting, using the body physically, also carrying heavy things, so using muscles, building muscle, resistance, training by physical labor, is creating testosterone, and we are having less and less of that in our society. Feeling like a success to the family in a symbolic way, being the hero of the family, being the protector of the family, creates testosterone. It is a biological mechanism. And so, of course, sleep is another one that's really important. So the whole thing about being in front of screens and not sleeping enough is also really problematic for testosterone and all the chemicals that are in our products, in our homes and in our foods, the pesticides, all those things you all are 100% aware of, I'm sure. But what you might not have thought about, but you probably know within you anyway, is that testosterone is linked to masculine leadership. And that leadership is about protecting the tribe, protecting the children, protecting the women against the enemy. is about protecting the tribe and the family against wild animals. It's also about knowing thy enemy, being able to scout who are a threat to my family and to my child's health, who's going to take me out as a leader of the tribe. And so this ability to spot enemies, that is leadership, the ability to go out and catch food and protect the tribe and know instinctively who's the enemy and who is my friend, and have the ability to switch off and say, I'm going to go and kill that animal to feed my family. To switch off this, I feel sorry about this animal. It looks so cute and I can't look it in the eye and then kill it at the same time. And it's also the ability to switch off and literally kill your enemy. Now, that's not something I'm suggesting you do, but that is what we are biologically created, or we are depending on you to be able to do. And this is what women often misunderstand when they think, well, how can you just switch off? How can you not be completely devastated about this? How can you switch off emotions? You can switch off emotions because that's how we survive. That's how we get food on the table. That's how you protect us from the enemies. But all those things that we need from you, and you need to create testosterone and to feel fulfilled in the masculine field, is gone from our society. So both men and women go out and hunt, bring back food, and the protection of the child, especially on the autism turnaround journey, often is taken over by the woman. Now, that is a disaster for testosterone. And it's actually a disaster for us because we cannot handle that responsibility. We cannot switch off. We are not designed to go out and determine which practitioner is the guy who's going to take me down, which one is the guy that's going to help us. We are not designed to protect the family against the big medical industry players, the corruption, the destruction, the pathological manipulation that's going on out there. That is war leadership. That's the generals. That's you. And we need you to do that. Now, we don't allow you to do that, which you might have already experienced in your own family. Because we get into this state of fight and flight and survival when our kids get sick and we take over. So it's often the woman who starts this process and starts researching, goes to see practitioners and decide what tests to take, what foods to eat. And quite quickly, we can have a situation where we as moms take over and become the mom of not only our children, but our partners. And that's what destroyed my relationship as well, to my ex-husband that I'm divorced from. So if you are in a situation where your wife is becoming the one that make all the decisions, and you're finding yourself taking 2 steps back in order to avoid conflict, I want to warn you against that. And I want to tell you why that is so dangerous for the relationship, for us, for the recovery process, and what to do instead. Let me know anywhere that this makes sense or doesn't make sense, or if you disagree, just let me know in the comments, and we'll talk about that as we go along. Miguel says that I believe we are put aside a lot when our children get affected, and that's absolutely true. We get sidetracked. Our needs, our sleep, our food, our dreams for the future, our relationships, everything gets put to the side when we're in that state of emergency and urgency. So I talk about this as the dark phase of autism, which I think many of you are either right in the middle of it or you are on the way out. This is where we have the meltdowns, the sleepless nights, the regression, the screaming, and we don't know why it happens. and we don't know how to stop it. We don't know our child's unique tantrum triggers yet. We don't understand the methylation aspects of the meltdowns and the regressions. And we might have this feeling that this is going to last forever. But I want to tell you that it's not going to last forever. It's like going through the terrible twos or teenage phases. It just lasts longer. And the more we address the system, not just the symptom, the shorter this period will be, this phase will be. We all go through it and we all come back to regression. But as you get more and more tools in your toolbox, you will know what triggers it and you will be able to adjust and avoid it. And you'll be able to get out of the situation quicker every time it happens. So I just want to just for a short while, just return to this, the aspect of testosterone and your role in the turnaround journey and what happens in a lot of relationships. That is, I think, one of the main reasons why so many couples don't make it through to the very end. So that either in the middle of this whole process or afterwards, there's a lot of divorces happening because of these misunderstandings, and they're highly preventable. So I think that when we look at what's been studied when it comes to male psychology and what makes men happy, and this is something that I can't say because I'm a woman, so you will know, but my guess is that it makes you happy when your child is healthy and happy and when your partner is happy. And if you're in a situation where none of that happens, it can feel like a personal failure when the partner is never happy and might be complaining, or simply are so stressed out and so in fight and flight that happiness is just not part of your life right now. And what happens if the woman takes over like I did and we become the leader of this process, is that we create more cortisol, more adrenaline, and we reverse the roles. So we have masculine women. And if you pull back in order to avoid conflict, because there's enough conflict and drama happening with autism already, so adding to that can be extremely stressful. So it will be a natural thing to pull back and avoid conflict. So don't speak up about what you want and what you agree with or disagree with. But when the roles are reversed, or if we as mothers get a feeling that we get away with parenting you and telling you what to do and silencing you and taking control of this process, what happens is that the libido is vanishing for both women and men. So for us, if we, and this is so illogical, let me try and explain this. If we have a sense biologically that the testosterone drops, that the masculine purpose is not fulfilled, we have a tendency to try and take over. So we test you. And how do we test you? We test you from a biological standpoint, and it has nothing to do with the relationship actually. We test, can he protect me from wild animals? Can he make sure that we're not going to starve? Can he protect us from enemies? Can he protect the tribe and the survival of the family and the genes? We do that by pushing it, by trying to take that role from you, and by going to extremes with it. And the more we feel that you step back, the more we test and push and take it to the extreme and go overboard with this. And this is especially happening to us when we are in low level of consciousness, when we are still not, when we don't know ourselves really that well in the beginning of this phase. And for me personally, I don't know about you, but I had to face how unconscious I was, how immature I was, how disconnected from my own body and my sexuality and my role as a mother and a partner. I was so immature, and that's how autism happened, because I went through my youth eating junk food and just being in unhealthy relationships, doing things I didn't want to do, working a job that I didn't want to work, going through university and my journalism degree out of my childhood woundings in order to prove my worth. And so many of us have a lot of personal work to do in order to step into the leadership here as women, and I guess maybe as men as well. So the less conscious we are, the more we will test you. And the more you budge and say, okay, I'm not going to discuss the food. I'm not going to discuss whether this test is actually something I believe in or not. I'm not going to discuss whether I think we need to go and do more grounding than biomedical interventions. I'm just going to wait and avoid this conflict. That steps up the tension, because we then take over completely. And that creates a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety, because we then feel that we have to protect the kid, ourselves, and the family. And in some strange way, when we get our way in that state of consciousness, we lose respect. So when we want our way, and when we become manipulative, and we become controlling, and we become dismissive, it's extremely important that you become strong and grounded and almost hold space for these strange feelings that we have, and this insanity that we present, and this irrational behavior. But don't back down. So the best thing for us, and the most safe space for us to be in, is if you say, I understand this is how you feel. This is how it's going to be. I'm going to take leadership for this. And this is something that's important for me. We're going to try this now. And then hold space and be able to be okay with anger, and be okay with sadness, be okay with grief. Because when we start to heal through autism, all the things that we haven't healed in our lives comes up, not just for us, but probably for you as well. The anger from childhood, the wounds from childhood, the grief from childhood, grief of where we have come to as a family, grief of the challenges that our children are going through and will be going through throughout their lives, grief about what we might have chosen to do in our lives that have contributed to it, so our unconscious behavior, and the choices we made or didn't make, the things we said yes to. In our case, my ex-husband and me, it was the vaccines, it was the medication, it was the junk food, antibiotics, the foods that we ate before getting pregnant, during pregnancy, and after, giving the child formula, going to the hospital, taking all the medications there, all the things, putting him on medication when he started having asthma because we put him on formula and gave him gluten and dairy and all that stuff. So my humble invitation for you is to respect your authority, take leadership, and be that warrior. Be that warrior that can hold space for all those emotions, and don't step down, don't back down, because we need you to be that leader. We desperately need you to be that leader. We need that role model, and the children need that as well. When that happens, we can become what we are supposed to be, which is our forte, is to be intuitive, is to intuitively feel what the children need, and to intuitively make sure that everyone feels good, are heard, included. So the woman who's in balance is soft, moves slowly, speaks softly, gives space, and does not dominate. So you can be 100% sure that if your partner is controlling, she's in fear and she's extremely anxious. So whenever you see this scary, witchy person coming at you, if you ever experience that, I want to invite you to look at the fearful little girl underneath that, and feel that protection and feel that understanding, almost like you're that general, you are leading your army, and the army is all the emotions and all the challenges that you're going through as a family. But we need you to step up to take that leadership. Don't be afraid, and don't underestimate how important you are as a masculine man. And it's something that feminism has really destroyed in many cases. So feminism is actually reversed feminine. It is the dark feminine, because it's manipulative, it is entitled, it is controlling, it's dominating, in my opinion. And it also breaks up families, because I don't think that it's possible for two people to have a full-time job and take care of a kid, let alone an autistic child who needs to be on a, if you look at a normal child, raising a normal child, feeding a normal child, growing a normal child, educating a normal child, that's like a 50-meter sprint. And the autism journey is a marathon, and the marathon lasts about 4 to 8 years. So where my son is at now, he's at the exit phase of the turnaround journey, but he's still 5 years behind in development. So yes, he's 21, but he's not 21 in maturity level. And so the minor details that we are working on now is, how do I budget? How do I move away from home? How do I save up and not spend all of my money on the fun stuff? How do I not eat gluten-free snacks all the time? You know, how do I take care of my body in that way? He's got all the other things totally worked out, including language, including learning the things in school that he didn't learn in the beginning at all, taking his driver's license, getting a job, friends, career, all that stuff. But it's a long journey. And so we need leadership and patience in order to be able to do that. So I'll take a breather here, and then I will read your comments. So Oliver says, and then there's a resentment when we try to take care of ourselves. Yes. And stick with it, stand up for yourself, and don't take any BS about that. Don't let anybody control you into not taking care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you cannot lead the battle. If you're not able to switch off and also pull back, it actually affects testosterone production as well. If you don't get your space, if you constantly have to be part of the family, have to be intimate, have to talk about things, you cannot pull back and create testosterone. So it's really important for your biology, and it's important for your leadership. And the funny thing is, John Gray, if you've studied him and the hormonal part of this, he says that if a man is arguing a lot and screaming a lot and fighting a lot, he's all estrogen, because the masculine does not do that. Testosterone does not fight and bitch and argue. It holds his ground, and it lets the war just, happen, but doesn't get involved in all the arguments and the screaming. That's the feminine, that's estrogen. So if you get tempted to do that, you know where you are at with your testosterone as well. It's really important to hold your authority through that. And I can really recommend following John Gray and following John Wineland as well. He's an American relationship coach. He's super cool about these things and these role reversal things as well. Yeah, so you are, which is what Patrick says, we are supporting the child and the mother. And thank you for that. You are the most important part of this journey. And I don't think that you, on a large scale, I don't think that men realize how important that is and how valuable that is. So what you're doing is so honorable, and it's so important, and it's so important for the community to see men like you step up and do this work. And we need you to do that. And in order to do that, You need to take your position and your authority in the family again. If you've lost that, you need to take that back. Miguel says, when we are always ignored about what we think and feel about it and how to treat it. Yes, I feel it. And Oliver says, it's hard not to react to the anger. And underneath anger, there's always grief. There's always sadness. And if you can hold your nervous system in a calm state when anger happens, if you can physically either be very close to the woman in that situation, and you really take deep breaths all the way, John Wineland would say that you need to breathe into your testicles, and you need to feel almost like your testicles are dumped into the ground like roots. And you breathe from that state and stay that grounded when anger happens. She will eventually relax and surrender into your strength. We need your strength, but it has to be a lived strength, and it has to be experienced through your nervous system. And as soon as you play into this whole drama that we tend to get into, and the discussions and the arguments, we lose that leadership. We lose your presence in your own nervous system, and it requires a lot of presence in the physical body, which is why it's important to be healthy. It's important to sleep well. It's important to exercise. It's important to be strong. It's important to eat healthy. Really important to be able to have that strength. So Patrick, I do as I'm told, and I back down, and I am relegated to the silent logistics guy. No conflict equals smoother for the child. And I totally get why you do that, and I probably would too, because there's nothing more scary than a woman who's angry, or a woman who stepped into that control freak state, where she's either a priest or a policeman, or someone who's pointing the finger, or teacher, or she becomes your mom. It's really, really unattractive, and it's scary, and it makes you want to retreat back to that silent logistics guy. What happens is that we lose the respect, and we lose the sexual dynamic. We lose that polarity between the masculine and the feminine, and we become either two men fighting against each other, or two women bitch fighting against each other, or we become each other's parents. And that is the almost 100% certain way, or surefire, I don't remember the word, way of destroying a relationship. So your assignment, your sacred assignment now, is to step into your male authority and say, my love, I'm taking over here, and not be silenced, and not be dominated, not be manipulated, and call the bullshit, because we long for that. We long for boundaries. We long for being put back in our place, and we long for that leadership. So physically, the way that John Wineland describes it, you have to be able to, when we are like that, almost take us up, pull us up, and throw us over your shoulder and tussle us. So that's the way I want you to see it. We need that kind of handling in order for us to relax and say, okay, he can take this leadership. But if we feel that we have to mother, or if we feel that we have a son or someone that we can dominate, we think that we're going to go out there and we're going to have to fight off all the lions. We're going to go hunting. We're going to go take care of building the house, fighting off the enemies, and we become more and more unbearable to be around. More and more manipulative, more and more controlling, more and more unhappy, more and more complaining. So if that's happening, you can shift that by only shifting yourself, by returning to stand up for your values, stand up for what you believe in, stand up for your masculinity and become that king of the family. It is so important also for your child. It is actually not beneficial for your child that you back down. I know it's so challenging and it's so confronting, and it confronts our mother wounds and our father wounds. So if we have had mother issues or father issues, these things will come up, and they come up to be healed in this relationship and in the turnaround process. Everything comes up. If we want to turn autism around, it requires us being willing to face everything, every single choice we have made, everything, every single emotion that we haven't expressed, every little dirty secret that we think we can hide in the back of the closet. It's all going to come up to be healed and to be confronted and to be revisited and to be released. So it is not an easy journey, and that's why you've been chosen to go and do this work, because it's only for the strongest, it's only for the warriors, it's only for the real kings of this world, and that's what we need you for. Now, if you want to say something or you have a comment or a question, let me know in the comments below here. Haha, sounds familiar, says Oliver. That's exactly what I've been doing. Back down to avoid stress. I like that. I have to remember the testicle roots for the next time. Remind each other of that one. Stay in that presence and look her into the eyes from that presence, because we can feel a nervous system that's a bit shaky. We can feel true masculine strength, and there's nothing better. There's nothing more safe. There's nothing more exciting, and there's nothing more attractive for your woman than that. And she will test you, because she will see, is he actually going to be able to do this or not? So hold your ground. Now, the most, I realize that when you are being robbed of your deserved knighthood and your crown as a king, that you will feel like taking back your territory. You're designed to have protection and authority over the territory in the family. And if you are being robbed of that territory by a dominant female, you might want to take back that territory by battling with your wife or partner about food, or about the lifestyle, or about practitioners, about the turnaround journey, or about where you live, or water filtering, or whatever it is. But just notice if that is some form of compensation. And then think about more sustainable and conscious ways of taking back your territory, because you deserve your territory, and you don't need to take it back in a way that diminishes your masculinity. So the de-masculinization is all about you stepping into the female space. And you don't need to do that, because you have the physical strength and you have the leadership already belongs to you. So don't try to fix her, and don't try to fix the situation by making yourself smaller. Okay, now I promised to share the most common blockers for your child's progress. So when I'm talking about blockers for your child's progress, I'm talking speech, and I'm talking regression, I'm talking tantrums, meltdowns, aggression, agitation, ritualistic behavior, ADHD, lack of social skills, all the symptoms. We're going to dive into what blocks the continuous development of your child's skills so that you can get the child to the best possible outcome. The way I look at it is that I look at it from the 5 messages behind any symptom. There are these 5 main categories behind any problem you have and any symptom that your child expresses or displays. And the number one hidden blocker and reason why your child is doing this or not progressing is consciousness. It's what we just talked about. but it is all the things that has to do with how conscious are you about your masculinity, about your role, about the choices you have made, about food, about your body, about who you have become and who you are becoming. So the number one reason why we see symptoms and lack of progression is that we subconsciously sabotage the journey, either by, just like we talked about, making ourselves smaller, turning ourselves into a woman, then battling the turnaround process subconsciously, because then we get the territorial feeling of gaining back some form of self-respect and self-worth. Or we don't know our own body well enough to determine, why is this regression happening? Why is this eczema coming up? Why don't my child speak? So we have to have a lived experience in understanding the feedback, the physical feedback that the body gives us, because it's a language. And what you're really, really, really brilliant at as men is that you're really brilliant at analyzing details and using them to change things and fix things. Use that skill to understand, where is it in my consciousness that I still need to learn the language of my body? Do I know intuitively if I'm constipated or aggressive or sleepless or lack libido, or if I have my hormones all over the place, or I experience hair loss or emotional distress? Do I have a lived experience in understanding what caused it and how do I adjust it? Because lived experience is the only thing that will work. It's the only thing that will change your child. It's the only thing that will convince everybody around you. It's the only thing that will give you balance in your relationship. And that lived experience, combined with your knowledge of your child, your bond to your child and your partner, no practitioner can replace that, and no alternative practitioner can replace that. So you have to become conscious about, what is it that this situation, these symptoms, these conflicts are here to teach me about my life, my purpose, and my path as a man on this planet, in this family, in this challenging situation. That's number one reason why we don't see progress. And it's super underestimated, because we all want logical things. We want a test and a supplement and an advice or a diet or a protocol so that we can fix things. But we fix things and we get into autism and we turn things around or not, based on our level of consciousness, self-awareness, and maturity level. So how well do we parent ourselves? That's number one. As men, how conscious am I about my masculine nervous system and my role in this family? We just talked about that, so we don't have to go through that again. Number two, most important thing, that is the reason why symptoms happen, or regression happen, or speech don't develop, or sleep doesn't happen, is nature deficiency. And when I talk about nature deficiency, I don't only talk about grounding. I talk about connecting to the earth, the microbiome of the earth, the instructions from virus and bacteria to the immune system, the information from light, and I'm talking about daylight. So I'm talking about the way that the sun moves in the sky, because that is linked to the bioclocks. Every single organ in the body has clocks that responds to light. So nature deficiency is light deficiency, it's grounding deficiency, it's mud deficiency, it's bacteria deficiency, it is circadian rhythm deficiency. So it's mismatch between night and day, because we're living indoors all the time. We're exposed to artificial lights, EMF, toxins, toxic water, toxic food, processed food. So our children are designed to be in perfect balance, homeostasis, self-regulating, eating everything, and fighting off virus, bacteria, inflammation, infections, and develop language, social skills, speech, everything. And nature provides the neurological development, but it also provides the mitochondrial instructions. It provides epigenetic instructions to the cells and the organs and the hormones about what to do at any given time. Just one example to illustrate that. The body detoxifies and processes at certain times during the night. So if you don't sleep before 10:30, it's like a programming. Okay, we're going to go through the brain, we're going to flush out the toxins, we're going to put nutrients into the cell in the beginning of the night, and then we're going to deal with the liver, and then we're going to activate thyroid, and then we're going to slowly start to raise the level of cortisol so we're ready to wake up in the morning. And if we don't sleep deeply throughout the night, either because of noise or EMF, even if we think we're sleeping, but we're not sleeping, we're not doing those things. So we're not getting nutrients into the cell, we're not detoxifying, we're not clearing the brain, we're not processing information, we're not creating growth hormone or testosterone or thyroid hormone. All those things are not happening. So our children cannot develop language skills. They cannot fight off virus and bacteria. They can't deal with inflammation. They cannot detoxify. They can't develop. And our children on the spectrum are already, they come into this world with an extra load. So they need it more than anybody. And that's just one aspect, that's sleep. And sleep requires darkness, and it requires daylight in the morning. It requires silence, it requires fresh air, it requires a certain temperature. So that's one example of why nature deficiency is causing autism regression or lack of development, including moving around to develop the cerebellum, crawling, creeping, skipping, rolling around, eye tracking exercises, all the things we did when we were kids outside. Reason number 3 for men to be, and for you as men, get your children outside and do playing, ball games, balance exercises, all the tree climbing, and all the things that we did as kids. Get your kids outside and do that, and understand that you are part of nature. And it's what we talked about with the roles of the men as well. You need to get out there and be a hunter-gatherer more in order to reverse autism. Number 3 is the emotional. So children express what we suppress. So as men, children express what we suppress when we swallow our words, when we take a step back, when we comply, when we become submissive, when we don't heal our wounds, when we don't step into our nervous system, when we don't deal with our conscious sacred journey that we are doing together on this journey. And so when there is a regression or a meltdown or sleeplessness or any other symptom, there's always an emotional aspect of this child trying to express what you and your partner hasn't dealt with. All our skeletons in the closet, all our lies and all our detachment and all our self-abandonment, self-censorship, working too hard, not fulfilling our dreams, not living our purpose, just postponing life, erasing ourselves, those kind of things. Children will not accept it, and they will express it through symptoms, is my experience over the past 15 years. I haven't talked to you about who I am, so I just want to say that I'm a journalist and a researcher, and I am actually, I'm educated in both university and journalism school, so I have 8 years of education and 15 years of experience. I've had about 20,000 women go through my programs over the years. Now, reason number 4 behind autism symptoms is the environment. And I just want to touch on that, not go into depth, but you have to change the environment that got you here. The emotional environment, we talked about that. Become the man in the leadership, re-established, become the king again. But also the where you live, we cannot heal in the same environment that got us sick. It's really hard to heal in Copenhagen or New York or Los Angeles or Milano or LA, the places where it's almost like demonic. Everything that made our children sick is present in an exaggerated way in those big cities, which is why I had to move out of the city into the countryside when my son was sick. But it's also water quality, it's noise, it's EMF, it's everything. We have to change the environment in some shape or form. And then the fifth one, which is what most of you have already done a lot of, the biomedical field, the nutrition, the bio-individual diets, and understanding that there are no supplements, no diets, no nothing that will make all children better. And basically, I would say maybe 70% of the things that we go and pay thousands of dollars and pounds to get tested, the many supplements we buy, or the biomedical interventions, about 60 to 70% of them make as many children worse, more regression, more tantrums, more rigidity, less development than it makes children better. And nobody's talking about this. But that is one of the most common turnaround blockers, is that these practitioners have outdated knowledge. They are academics. They work myopically, which means they have one field of expertise and they don't look at the system. Many of them, I want to share with you, I've sat with Daniel Amen, who is the most respected psychiatrist in the world. And I went into a meeting with him, talking to him about other things, but it was about neurodevelopment. And we were talking about ADHD, and we were talking about autism and aggression. And I said, because he's giving out supplements, and he's giving out all the supplements that I know will make children with undermethylation worse. And I said, well, how do you deal with undermethylation, and how do you deal with pyrrole disorder when you hand out these things that actually can make them worse? And I could see him blank out, and he started looking, he started just tapping his computer. He did not know anything about these things. He didn't know about undermethylation being an issue for about 80% of autistic children, which I'm sure all of you know. If you don't, let me know in the comments. Which means that most of the multivitamins, if not all, will make our children worse. Fish oil is not a good idea. Vegan diets is not a good idea. All the B vitamins can be problematic and cause regression and tantrums and setbacks. And we cannot hand out supplements on a protocol base to these kids. He's not the only one. I've met with two other ones that are the most prominent functional medical practitioners that have educations where they're training practitioners to go out and do this for your kids. And they had no idea about this. So a massive blocker for your turnaround process is that these practitioners have missing links and gaps in their knowledge. And their tests, their protocols, and their diets are making so many kids worse. And the only way to take back the authority in this department for you is that you have to become that expert. You have to know about undermethylation, pyrrole disorder, digestion and the microbiome, and the role of those three things in autism, which is always present. There are no kids that I've met so far who do not have these issues. Maybe one or two I've met so far who does not have these issues. And they cannot go into biomed and not get worse unless people know about this. And it's frightening how many practitioners out there do not know this. I was going to make a list about practitioners who can do this. And there are nobody who are open to new clients at the moment. which means that everyone you go to now and pay money to test your child and give you protocols and diets will have huge links, missing links and gaps, and will make children worse, which is super depressing. But the good news is that you can learn this and you can take charge and you can make sure that you can ask the right questions, not waste time on the tests that don't matter, and not buy into the diets and supplements that will make matters worse. And it's actually not super complicated, but it takes some time to get used to take that information in so that you can take leadership in this. And that's why I made this course with Dr. Berenti, who's the only doctor right now that I personally would trust my kids to. But she's also so fully booked that she's really impossible to get into. So I created those 4 nutrition courses that you might have heard of. If not, let me know and I can send you links. But where we go through your child's unique tantrum triggers, that's the first module. Number 2 is methylation, under-methylation, how to balance it and understand it. Number 3 is inflammation, and PANS and PANDAS. So these are the courses that I suggest if you want to go down the biomedical route. But I actually don't think that you need it until the foundation that we talked about in this training is in place. And I think much of it you can do for free at home without having to involve practitioners in it by working on yourself. So let me see if there's any questions around that. Yeah. How hard was it for you to leave the city? Me and my wife is in the same situation now. It was really hard to leave the city because I left my job. I left my safety net. I left all my friends. I left my career, and I did not know how to make it happen. I didn't know how to put food on the table. I just knew, almost like I was in a war zone, I have to get my child out of here. I just have to. And I feel that if we are feeling called to do something, if we're being asked to make a massive step, that how we do it will show up. And we had an apartment, fortunately, that we could sell. We didn't have a lot of money at all. And when we moved, we actually didn't have any money at all. So in the beginning phases of the turnaround, my husband and I, we're both journalists. We literally worked in the night, and then we trained and helped and healed our son in the daytime. So we worked and earned our money in the nighttime, and then we slept for a couple of hours, and then we took care of him. It was horrifically hard. And in the beginning phases, my ex-husband, he was doing all the physical neurodevelopment training with my son outside. And this is between us because it's not something my son wants out in the public. But my son, for 1 year straight, would take off all his clothes in the middle of the forest, people walking by, and he would either shit or pee on the sidewalk, on the path with people passing by. And so many times my ex-husband, he was approached by people who literally thought this is child abuse, because he was screaming like we were trying to kill him because he wanted him to do these exercises outside, and my child would have nothing of it. This is what I'm saying. Sometimes it takes a long effort before you get to the other side. Luckily, the brain development part now has gone so far from back then when it took hours for us every day to do the exercises in nature. That can now be done in 10 minutes, 2 times a day on a smartphone. But those options didn't exist back then. So some of the choices we're asked to make are really, really hard and big sacrifices. But when you feel called to do it, there's no way you can avoid it. So if you know you have to move, you will have to move, and you will find a solution. It will show up for you. What happened to me is that the idea for the book that I wrote came to me when I moved, and I wrote a book about my son's transformation, by the way, and that's what I've been doing since, is helping other moms and parents. I'm very concerned about my son's lack of proper evacuations. We cannot see how to fix it. Did you all feel related to it? What is evacuations? Can you explain that to me, Miguel? I'm just going to unmute you. So you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, it's a very, very polite way to say bad shit. He always have he always do it in a very messy way. It's like he always have not diarrhea, but something like it, and it's not a natural and healthy shit.
No. Okay, I see your point. And how long has that been the case for you? How long has that been?
That's been working for about 2 years or so.
Yeah.
It's very few times that I've seen a good dump, and not so smelly. Okay, because that's another sign for me, I believe, because it's a lot of smells, a lot of it. I don't know if he's processing well what he's eating. I don't know. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I don't know if it's related or not, but I believe it's related.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is related. Both of my kids were dealing with that, and I don't know what you have been. So one of the things that's really important is to understand that the diet is going to take some time to adjust to that individual child. So when you have a healthy microbiome and a good digestion, and the detox pathways are cleared and methylation is regulated, and the sleep and the energy production is in place, then that will be solved. But many people think, okay, we're going to cut out gluten and dairy and maybe glutamates, and then things will progress. But it's actually much more holistic than that. And that's why I with the membership, in my membership, we go through these phases where you learn how to eat ancestrally, and you learn how to determine your child's type, and you learn how to eat in a way where your child is self-regulating, because the child can regulate microbiome, viral infections, and imbalances intuitively. The more plugged into nature the child is, that will happen. But if it's an emergency situation, and if there's a lot of things that needs to be cleared out, and you don't have that time to do that type of investigation by practice, I see if I got that book. I highly recommend a book. See if I have it here. I can't see it now. It's called, it's by Fred Provenza. I'll type his name here. About how we are designed to choose food that heal digestion or inflammation or parasite infections or any viral load, and how we have been detached from that. It's something we're born with. It's something that all mammals do and are capable of. Goats do it, sheep do it when they are in the wild. They choose foods to take care of those infections and parasites and digestive issues or nutrient deficiencies or overloads. But the less connected to nature we are, the more difficult that will be. It's called, I think it's called Nutritional Wisdom. And nutritional wisdom. And it's the subtitle is What Animals Can Teach Us About Our Nutritional Wisdom and How We've Abandoned It. But basically, it shows how children who live from foods that are growing on the land And they are self-selective, meaning that there are all vegetables, all fruits and drinks and nuts and bitter herbs and liver and everything on the table. They will choose intuitively exactly what they need if they're in balance. They will not choose the same foods 2 days in a row. No two children will choose the same foods either. So they will know exactly what they need to be balanced. This is what we have removed them from by giving them processed foods, by taking them indoors, by giving them access to a lot of sugar and additives, and not being fed from what's growing on the land. And that's what I want you to get more and more back to, that intuitive ability to let yourself be guided from intuition, because it's an instinct. It's not even fluffy, it's not even spiritual or anything like that. It's an instinct that we are born with. We are designed to self-regulate. That's how we encapsulate cancer cells. That's how we deal with parasites. That's how we deal with virus and infections. That's how we raise nutrient levels when we're low. That's how we know when to stop to eat certain foods so that the levels are balanced out and we don't go overboard. And that's what we want to get our children back to. So these are the things that I teach in the membership. But if you want to go through the biomedical side of things and you want to dive into the microbiome, you want to understand methylation, and you want to understand how to deal with these infections, I really, and your child's unique tantrum triggers, how to determine what's what and what to do, how to adjust it, then the courses with Dr. Berenti, those 4 nutritional courses, are like the fundamental knowledge that you can take in order to understand that. But that's purely the biomedical side of it. It's not about the intuition, and it's not about getting back to that self-regulatory state. But, you know, we have children in the community who do nothing but remove artificial foods, and they go outside every day and do the grounding. These kids, they go and eat leaves, they take clay, and then they go and find herbs, and then they purge parasites. These are the autistic children in my community. The moms are reporting that when they get back to homeostasis, that's what they are capable of. I have one mom, and you can go and find her story on my podcast. It's her name is Stacy, and it's in the testimonial collection on my blog on barefootautismwarriors.com. On my blog, not in testimonials, but on my blog, there's a compilation of success stories. Her child's first 2 words were, "Take off your shoes, mama." Not 2 words, but his first sentences were, "Take off the shoes, mama, find the sun." So I'm just saying, these children come with so much wisdom, so much ability to heal. And I get goosebumps when I talk about this, because they are already there and we're just trying to keep up. Everything they struggle with and suffer from is because we don't understand that that's what they are meant to be and do and say, and that's how they're supposed to heal. But because we live indoors, because we live so detached from nature, and because we're so detached from nature ourselves and from our bodies and from tribal lifestyle, that's really hard for them to do. And my belief is that they came into our lives to wake us up collectively on this planet to understand this wisdom. It's not complicated, but it's a freaking hard journey to return to, because we are so misguided. We have lost track of who we are, is my opinion. Yeah, nutritional wisdom. Yes, nourishment. I don't understand why I can't find that book. Well, anyway, I will link to it and I'll send it out in an email. So Oliver says he wants to eat leaves and grass all the time now. It's so funny that they do that. It's so funny. And the more they are in line with and in sync with the circadian rhythm and nature, the more they'll eat everything. And I mean everything from liver to sage and leaves and herbs and nuts and vegetables. Picky eating is not natural. Okay. Part of what helped was finding a good probiotic. And yes, that can be a good idea for some children, and it can be horrific for other children. So the children who have histamine issues, if they take certain probiotics, they will go berserk in meltdowns and aggression, and just into ritualistic behavior again, because when you have histamine issues, you have low methyl, and low methyl is undermethylation, and undermethylation is linked to all autism symptoms: regression, OCD, aggression, lack of learning, lack of social skills, but also mom's depression, infertility, and even autism. So undermethylated moms have a higher risk of getting children with autism, of birthing children with autism. So probiotics is not something that I normally recommend as a first thing. It might work for some, and it might just set some children off. Same with glutamates, collagen, bone broth, all multivitamins, all B vitamins, all exclusion diets can exacerbate autism symptoms for a lot of children, which is why we have to do the groundwork. We have to understand what's my child's triggers. What does it feel like when a trigger is food related? How do I know how to adjust it? What tests work? What test doesn't work? Because gene testing is a waste of time. Food intolerance testing is a waste of time. Detox protocols is highly risky. Yet, this is what most of the practitioners will do. They will do all these tests, they will give you all the protocols, and it won't work in the long term. What works in the digestion will not heal the brain. So we have to heal the body in a different way that we heal the brain. Those two things are not linked in the healing procedure, which is so frustrating, because if we could just eat fermented food for the gut, that would be great, but it just destroys our kids' brains. It creates more agitation, more aggression, more meltdowns, and less learning. Right. I think that's what I had to share. So for you, Doran, who asked the question about my partner being so engulfed in biomedical treatments and so devoted that she's not interested in doing this work and doing the course and doing the membership, I'm trying to convince her. What can I do to walk by example? And that's this that we've been talking about today. That's what you need to do to walk by example. I've made it a job of mine to go through my mindset course and membership and remove the things that are talking only to moms, so that you can go through that without feeling alienated. Because the membership and the mindset course, the teachings there are for everybody. What I teach there is for everybody, but sometimes in the audios I talk in a way that it's directed towards moms, and I want to remove that. So you're very welcome in the mindset course and in the membership. The nutrition courses are for everybody. And I would say you can do this in 15 minutes per day, or you can do an hour per day. You can take 1 year to do this. You can take 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, depending on how much time you have. It's really, for some women, this is something that they've changed in 2 or 3 months. I have a couple in San Diego, Ariana and her husband, and they reversed everything in about 7 months, not even. And they are also in that blog and on my podcast and on the YouTube channel, barefootautismwarriors.com. But they went all in, and they dedicated all their time to it, and they just did only this. And that meant that their son is now no longer being evaluated for autism. So it depends on how much time you have. It depends on the level of complication for your child. Sorry, it's my son. But it doesn't, there is no, you have to put an hour aside every day or anything like that. It can fit into your schedule however you want it. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, so that's all the questions covered as well. I am going to just, for those of you who have time, I'm going to share my screen and just show you. This is the interview with my husband, and I highly recommend it because he went through all the things that you're going through, and he describes in detail how difficult it was to deal with me and with the symptoms and the regression, and how he did take that leadership and how he didn't in the beginning, and he was completely submissive. So I'm going to link to that as well. I'm going to post that link for you. And then I just want to show you here, the mindset course is three modules. You can take those 3 modules in 3 weeks, and that will give you an idea about the number 1 course for autism turnaround blocks, which is the consciousness levels. And if that is something that resonates with you, then the membership is where I take people through, let me see, is where I take people through the whole process of intuitive eating, circadian living, understanding your child's biotypes, and circadian living, and changing the environment. So all the 5 underlying messages behind autism, we go through that in the membership. And it is I would say it's something that might take 8 months for most people. But I just want to show you what it looks like. And just to show you, here you can see that we go through these phases: prime the mind, body and roots, environment, how to change the environment, healing and body typing, intuitive eating. We've got to move our faces here. Inner child and healing self-sabotage, love and relationship, soul, passion and purpose. And then all the coaching calls are down here, and the libraries are down here as well. So we have all the biomedical, the cooking, the brain development, all that stuff is in there for those of you who feel like joining the membership. For the brain development and speech, I will suggest you get a balance board and you get a gym ball. Let me see, how can I stop sharing here? You get a gym ball and a balance board, and you get a ball or a beanbag to do eye tracking exercises and balance exercises, where your child sits on a gym ball and flicks the feet up and down and to the side with eyes closed while he or she sits on that balance board. And eye tracking exercises, you can also find them on YouTube, where you follow either a beanbag or a ball while you're walking. Anything that creates vestibular stimulation and balance at the same time will work to develop the cerebellum. So think about stretching the brain by doing balance exercises while you're doing eye tracking exercises, or turning or spinning while you're doing eye tracking exercises, or sitting and balancing while you're doing the balance board. Those exercises will help the brain learn and develop speech easier. And if you wanna, here I'm gonna just link to that podcast. If you want to do the program, the neurological program, it's not my program, and I don't benefit financially from recommending it, but it was what taught my child English, maths. It was what made him pass his driver's exam. It was what made him pass his exams in school after learning literally nothing until he was 16. He did that program for 1 year, and then he completed all his exams, because the brain stores all the attempts to learn, all the attempts to speak, all the attempts to store information. It keeps that memory until the cerebellum is so fully developed that it can create new stem cells, new pathways, and then put that information in the right place. And all of a sudden the child can start to learn. This has happened to 80-year-old people who couldn't write or read. When they do that kind of brain development, they can all of a sudden. It's good for ADHD, it's good for dyslexia as well. So that's called singperformance.com, but only after 7 years old can you do that program, which is why I recommend the balance exercises and the eye tracking exercises for kids that are younger than that. And the eating non-edible things, Oliver, is often linked to neuroinflammation. And so we created a whole teaching course just about that. I would suggest that you do the methylation course and the digestion course as well. But the PANS, PANDAS, and neuroinflammation course with Dr. Berenti covers all that, why it happens, why these infections happen, why antibiotics might not be a good idea, what you can do with botanicals and food regulations and lifestyle to fix this. Because it's so frustrating, but it is a biochemical thing, and it is something you can fix, and it's actually very common. Miguel says, thank you. It's been very enlightening. My email is miguelpavao@gmail.com. We'll talk to my wife for the subscription. I will send out an email to all of you that have signed up here, and I really encourage you all to go and sign up for the newsletter. In case you don't receive an email from me within a week, let us know at contact@barefootautismwarriors.com, because I want to connect you all together. Maybe we can create a Telegram group. And I want to say that if any of you, oh, thank you so much for your emails. You can write all your emails here and I can save that if you write it now before we check out. If you have questions for me, because we're such a little group, send them and I will either record an audio message for you or get back to you via email. So if you have any questions, anything you're struggling with when this information just settles, or if you in the future just feel frustrated and you want to talk about things, just let me know, send me an email and I'll be there for you. And I really hope one or two of you or all of you feel like helping other men when you are on the other side or have more time to study how to do this. In the education, I'm going to include all the teachings from Dr. Berenti and from the people that I have learned everything from. So it's going to be very intense specialization in everything that we talked about today. So thank you. I've got the emails here. If any of you want an email and want to be connected with each other, write the email here. And then I just want to thank you so much for joining. And thank you for showing up and for having the patience to listen to all of this. I know it's a lot to take in. And yeah, I admire you so much. And I'm so moved by the way that you show up and the love that you show for your children and for your partners, whether you live with them or not. Thank you for that. You are making a big difference. And you are kings and heroes to me. So I hope you are to yourself and increasingly to your partners as well. Thank you for what you're doing. I'm here anytime you need me. Just remember that I'm your friend and I know you can do this. So talk to you again. Take care. Bye-bye now.